Welcome everyone. I didn't see how many people are here. It looks like there's several people, so that's great. Awesome. All right. So listen, I am going to make this kind of informal. I do have some slides, but I actually feel like if anyone has any questions, since it's a relatively small group, feel free to just either use the little hand raise thing and raise your hand, or if you want, just unmute yourself and ask a question. It's no problem at all. And we're going to talk about mental toughness and kind of the things that I've gone through in my life and sort of how I got through them. And I think you'll find that the stuff I went through is different than the stuff you're going to go through, but I feel like everyone goes through stuff, right? We all go through stuff, and that's really the key. It's about forming a mental framework to deal with whatever it is that's going on in your life. And some of us have to deal with things that are much harder than other people, and some of us have sort of an easy go at it for a while, and then all of a sudden something comes out of the blue. And so it's really important to be mentally tough and be prepared for whatever's going to happen, because as you go through your life, you're going to see things just happen out of the blue. And you'll, as I tell you my story, I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. So I'm going to share my slides for a second. And I do this presentation or some variations of this presentation somewhat regularly. So I kind of edited my slides to make it a little bit easier, a little bit less formal. So hopefully it goes well. If not, we'll just stop using slides and we'll just chat. So hopefully that's okay with everyone. And I will share those slides right now. So hopefully you can now see my screen. And let me just, I gotta adjust a few things really quick and then I'll be there. Okay, very good. So I don't know if anyone knows what they're looking at here. But rather than, have you guess, unless somebody has a guess, does anyone have a guess by any chance? Anyone know what this sculpture is? Who this sculpture is? Who it's by? Okay, so that's actually Michelangelo's Moses. So Michelangelo, Renaissance sculptor, probably the most famous artist of all time, sculpted things like the David, which we've all seen, the big tall David standing naked on a podium. But this particular sculpture is Michelangelo's Moses. And the reason I put that there is because I like it. Hope that's all right. That's the main reason I have it there. But the other thing is I want to tell you a little bit about, who I am. I don't know if anyone knows what a JD is, or that's also called a Juris Doctorate. What's that? Somebody had something to say. Well, JD is actually a Juris Doctorate, which is a degree that you get when you go to law school. It's a doctor of law, and the MBA is a master's in business administration. Those are things that I did. And this slide actually is sort of a list of things that I had accomplished by the time I was 30. So this isn't me now. I'm 42 now, so it's been more than a decade since then. But I just kind of want to give you a sense of where I was, because I told you that as you go through your life, you have things that are kind of easy, periods of time that are really good, and then something comes out of the blue, like the coronavirus, and throws everything off and makes us all go through this stuff that we've been going through the last 12 months or so now. But this is where I was. I was married. I had a house in the suburbs. I lived up in Michigan at the time. I'm in Chattanooga now. I traveled a lot. Egypt, the Middle East, Europe, Central America, South America. I even had a television commercial, which if I was really on top of it, I would have brought the video of that. You guys can find that on YouTube. It's called Meet Mary. If you ever want to watch it, it's kind of entertaining. But then something crazy happened to me. So I was 30 years old. I went down to Machu Picchu. Does anyone know what Machu Picchu is? I see a couple of people nodding, so that's cool. So Machu Picchu is a ancient Incan city. It's on top of a mountain in South America, in Peru. So I went down there, and I was, that was sort of like it was kind of the last thing on my bucket list. When one of the reasons I really like the Moses is when I was in college, I'd heard this story one of the professors was telling the story about Michelangelo's unveiling of the Moses. And the Moses is actually in a small church on a hill behind the Colosseum in Rome. And it's kind of in the corner of the room. And it was really meant to be the centerpiece of a tomb for a pope. And then the pope died early, so the whole tomb never got completed. It was really just the Moses that was done. And so it just kind of sits there in the corner. But he unveiled this sculpture for the pope. And I think you have to think of the pope like a combination of the president and the Pope today. And like all at the time during the Renaissance, the Pope basically ruled the world. Like he was the most important person in the entire world. Michelangelo's presenting this sculpture to the Pope, and they pull the sheet off of it, and he just kind of stares at this thing, and he doesn't say anything at all, and he gets really quiet, and it's really awkward. And finally one of his students comes up to him, and he's like, master, like you have to say something. And he takes this chisel that he had in his hand, and he throws the chisel at the sculpture, and he screams the single word, the word move. So at the time, he was so passionate about this sculpture, which it's incredible, right? I mean, it's very well done, but he wanted it to get up and move. So he kind of went insane in front of the president of the world, the Pope of the day, right? The most important person in the world. And when I heard that story when I was in college, I was at a community college at the time, I thought, there's nothing in my life that I'm so passionate about that I would stand up in front of the most important person in the world and throw a chisel. Now, I don't know if any of you have anything like that in your life, but I would guess not. So I did what any 21-year-old person would do. I immediately dropped out of school and bought a plane ticket to Rome, well, to London, actually, because apparently I thought that was close enough to Rome. So I flew to London. It's not even on the same, I mean, it's the same continent technically, but it's an island off the coast in England, obviously. So 700-800 miles away. So I flew to Europe like literally 3 weeks after hearing this story. I did finish the semester, which, by the way, if you are ever going to drop out of school, not saying you should or shouldn't, but if you make that decision, you should definitely finish the semester, because you're probably going to want to go back like me at some point, and finishing the semester helps a lot. So I went to Rome. I actually backpacked around Europe, and I got down to Rome, and I went and saw this sculpture, and I was looking at it, and I was like, I still have no clue what I want to do with my life. And I imagine most people feel that way when they're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. Sometimes people think like, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. But it's just sort of in a general sense, but like, what's your life's purpose? What's that thing that's going to get you up in the morning, that's going to make you excited? And I just kind of felt like I was missing that. And so I had gone on this quest to find that purpose. And I went and saw the Moses, and I walked outside of this church, and I looked down at the Colosseum, and I sat on the steps of this church, and I thought, I really still have no idea what it is that I want to do. And so I just kind of went, well, I like seeing old stuff, so I'm just going to go make some money, and I'm going to travel the world. So that's what I did. I went to law school, and I became the graduating class speaker and started my law firm and all that kind of stuff. And then something happened. This happened September of 2008. I was 30 years old. And this is, by the way, does anyone know what this is? My wife holding something. Does anyone have any idea what she's holding? I'd love to hear your guesses on this, if anyone has a guess. Anyone? Oh, looks like somebody's getting ready to unmute themselves.
Is that for extracting bone marrow?
It is. You're the first person ever to guess that, actually. But yeah, so and I've shown this picture many times. This is the actual needle they use to drill into my hip to extract bone marrow. They had thrown it away, and I told my wife, I said, you got to go get this out of the trash and take a picture of it, because someday I might want to show this picture to Rise Up Cooperative. That's actually, no, I didn't actually say that, but the point is, like, in September of 2008, right after I got back from Machu Picchu, I actually had gone to Machu Picchu in August of 2008. This was like 2 weeks later. I get diagnosed with leukemia, and it was bad. Like, I don't know if anyone knows about white blood cell counts, but my white blood cell count the day I was diagnosed was 258,000. It's supposed to be like 5 to 10,000. I think 4 to 11 is the range, but most people are like 6, 7, or 8,000. And the only thing I knew about leukemia was that, well, one, it was bad. It was a type of blood and bone marrow cancer. But also that, like, my cousin who died of leukemia in a couple of years before I was diagnosed, her white blood cell count had gotten up to about 150,000. So when I heard 250,000, I immediately determined that I was going to die. I fortunately was wrong about that, but I had this period of time. I got diagnosed at 10 o'clock at night. Actually got a doctor call my house phone back then, before we had a lot of cell phones. Call my house phone and say, hey, no easy way to tell you this, but you have leukemia. You have to come to the hospital right now. So and this kind of goes to what I was saying earlier, that things can go really well for a while, and then all of a sudden something can happen that can throw a loop for you. It could be COVID, right? I mean, that happened to the whole world this year. It could be getting diagnosed with leukemia. It could be any number of things. It could be getting laid off from your job, or one of your friends dying suddenly, or you getting some kind of other illness. I mean, there's so many things that can happen. And one thing I know about life is we're going to have good and bad stuff happen to us. It doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter how lucky we are. It doesn't matter how many blessings we were given. We're going to have some good stuff happen, and we're going to have some bad stuff happen. And this is true even for people that were born in really terrible situations. They're going to have some good stuff. And it's just about framing that, really. So this actually pushed me into personal bankruptcy. So I was a bankruptcy attorney, and I went bankrupt. That was kind of embarrassing. But the thing is, I just didn't give up, because I had this thing. So I had this thing about staying positive, which, there were days that were tough. I mean, there's no doubt. You get diagnosed with leukemia, it's not your favorite day. It's not like you're going to be like, wow, like this was great. But I have a couple of secrets I want to share about mental toughness. And this is going to take like 5 minutes, maybe 7. And then I'm just going to like talk about whatever. And I've had a pretty extraordinary life. I've done a lot of amazing things in the last 10 years since I've recovered from leukemia. And we can talk about any of that, and just kind of, it's all about, I think it's all about just like, being excited about the future. So here's the things that I think are really important when it comes to mental toughness and to dealing with, shocking news or terrible things that happen to you, right? Whatever they are. Because, some people have problems that are way worse than mine, and other people have, like, they stubbed their toe once, and that's the terrible thing they're dealing with. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's just that in that moment, it feels really important, whatever it is. So the first thing is, don't have bad days. And I know that sounds kind of crazy to just say, like, don't have bad days. But the thing is, you don't have to have bad days. Like I said earlier, good and bad stuff happens to everyone every single day. And that's certainly true, right? There's this thing called the Bader-Meinhof effect. You don't need to remember that. I promise no quizzes on this stuff. But the Bader-Meinhof effect is this. I don't know if you've ever noticed, like if you go get a new car, or maybe your parents got a new car, all of a sudden, everywhere you drive, you see that same car. It just shows up everywhere. You never saw it before. Maybe you get a Honda Civic, and now it seems like everyone has a Honda Civic, or whatever it is, right? That's the Bader-Meinhof effect. It's basically the principle that says that your subconscious mind defaults to what's familiar. So for me, I try to focus on positive things all the time. right? So when I was 17, I was sad. I don't know. I was breaking up with my girlfriend at the time. My parents were going through a divorce, and I was just like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. That's really how it felt. I'm not going to say I was clinically depressed or something, but I was not happy. And I was staring at the mirror in the bathroom, and I thought, this is really kind of dumb. I live in America, and like I'm healthy and I'm young. Like, how bad can it really be? So I just said to myself out loud while staring at myself in the mirror, today's a good day. And I just said it over and over again. And then the next day, like, I didn't have a good day. It was still a bad day. And then I just kept saying, today's a good day, over and over and over again. Every time I saw a mirror, every time I walked outside, anytime I was by myself, I would think to myself, or I would say out loud, today's a good day. And I said that over and over again for months. And then one day I walked into a convenience store, and the clerk behind the counter said to me, how you doing today? And I just said, I never have bad days. I didn't really think about it. I didn't say it. It just came out of me because I'd been saying for so many days, today's a good day. All of a sudden I was like, I never have bad days. And that was when I was 17. It's 25 years ago. No bad days for 25 years. It's just about reframing your situation and focusing on the positive stuff that happens. So like when I got diagnosed with leukemia, my brother came into the hospital that night and he said, today's probably a bad day. It was almost like he wanted to prove to me that it wasn't possible to give up on bad days. And I was like, well, actually, I got diagnosed at 10 o'clock at night. Most of the day was pretty good. So not really. Today's a good day, right? It averaged out to a good day. The next day was harder. I was in the hospital the whole day. I thought I was dying. In fact, my dad had come in and said, if you live till February, remember this is in September. He said, if you live till February, I'll take you to Australia. And I was like, wow, I just hope I make it till Christmas. That's where my mind was that day. So it was a struggle. But I also had good things happening to me. I had my family show up, and it was obvious that they loved me. And I had this amazing experience a few weeks earlier going to Machu Picchu, and I just was generally positive. But the thing that tipped the scale was around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There was a shift change, and this nurse came in and she looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, Jeff, I'm so sorry to see you. I really wish you weren't here." And I looked at her and I said, "Oh my God, Shelly, I'm so happy to see you," because she was like my babysitter from when I was 10. And I was like, this is amazing. I get to see my babysitter. And that was enough for me to tip the balance. And I know that kind of sounds weird. And you kind of go like, on one hand, you've been diagnosed with leukemia and you think you're dying. On the other hand, you get to see your childhood babysitter. Like, it seems like one is more important than the other. But the reality is, because of the Baader-Meinhof, the Bader-Meinhof effect, my brain was looking for positive and not negative. I trained myself to not have bad days. And then in retrospect, it turns out that actually was a really good day, because if it wasn't for that day, I wouldn't be here where I am now. I shortly thereafter quit practicing law, and I moved to Chattanooga, and I took a new job. And I got to meet amazing people, and I got to go on this whole new course in my life where I get to do podcasts and come and talk to people and do groups and presentations. So it's just really, all of this positive came out of that. And if I had let myself become depressed, right? If I'd let myself say, oh man, my life's terrible, then that positive would have never come from it. So that's the first secret to mental toughness. I promise the next two are less long. So the next one is just keep moving forward. And this is like, it sounds weird to say. I wonder if anyone can guess what this picture that's in the background is. I'm gonna guess no. Unless it's, Joe and Sandy Pricer, maybe they can guess because they know more about me than that. But this picture is a picture that I took last February, so like a year ago, from the crater rim of a volcano on the equator in Tanzania. It's called Kilimanjaro. It was really hard. like this is, you're looking down at the clouds, the sun's rising over the valley. It was super cold. You can see people over in the bottom left-hand corner kind of making that last climb to the summit. And it took 8 days to climb this mountain, camping out in tents, cooking your own food, freezing cold. I mean, really, the first day, super hot, humid. The second day, a little less hot. The third day, kind of chilly. The fourth day, cold. The fifth day, freezing, right? You know, it's one of those things, because the higher you got, the colder it got. And when you got to the very top of the mountain, if I were to turn around here and look behind where we're standing and looking down, it's ice and snow. You can see a little bit of snow on the left there. But there's like a whole glacier up there, right? This top of Kilimanjaro, the highest point in the African continent, 19,300 feet tall. And it was really hard. And when I was climbing the mountain, I wanted to quit. Like I started climbing, like my brother was there with me, and he ended up getting acute mountain sickness, and they took him off the mountain and hospitalized him for 4 days. He didn't make it to the top. He spent 4 days in a Tanzanian hospital without running water in his room. I mean, this is a place where if we're fortunate, you recognize how fortunate you are when you deal with situations like that. And when I was climbing this mountain, I really wanted to quit. My brother had said to me at 6 p.m. that night, and I started climbing at 10 p.m. and climbed all through the night, and then watched the sunrise from the top. He said, "You have to make it to the top of the mountain." And then they started walking him down the mountain, you know, and I was worried about him, and we were in radio contact, and I'd get reports, you know, he's not doing much better. He's made it to this camp or that camp, you know, and he had to walk 27 kilometers off the mountain, which is about 18, 19 miles, with his oxygen level in the 50% range, which is, you know, not good. His lips turning blue from lack of oxygen, and his lungs filling up with fluid, really bad headaches. You know, and it can be fatal. I mean, mountain sickness is not a joke. And I'm climbing up this mountain, and I keep wanting to quit. And I would walk like 10 steps, and I had these trekking poles, and I would lean down on my trekking poles, and I would like doze off standing up, and I would think, I can't do it, right? But I just kept walking forward, and the whole time I kept thinking to myself, well, one, I told all these people in my Last Life Ever group, I have this Facebook group, I told them I was going to climb this mountain, so I have to do it or it'll be embarrassing. And then I would see porters, people that live and carry gear up the mountain. They would just kind of stroll by me like it was no big deal, and I was like, man, their life is so much better than mine. But that's actually not true, right? These are people that are getting paid $10 or $15 a day to carry people's gear up a mountain for a living. And while I'm looking at them walk by me, it's easy to say, yeah, their life is so much better than mine, right? But the reality is they're probably looking at me and going, man, I wish I could, you know, afford to fly across the world and pay to climb a mountain, because this was not a cheap excursion. But the point is, if you keep moving forward and you just keep taking positive steps towards your goal, you eventually get there, right? And, you know, sometimes you're going to have setbacks. I mean, you could be like my brother. He didn't make it to the top of the mountain, but if you talk to him, he says it's still one of the best experiences of his whole life, because he got to experience climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and he got to spend time in Africa and go on safari, and he got to meet amazing people in the hospital, right? So sometimes it's about framing what's going on in your life. Like that, I would have been very disappointed if I didn't make it to the top. He looked at that same situation and went, my life is good. I got to go to Africa, right? So you have to keep thinking about it that way. So that's the second secret. And then the third secret is not really a secret so much, but like 8 tips on how to supercharge your motivation, right? So we're gonna go through these super quick, and it goes like this. One, and by the way, I have a PDF of this, which I emailed to Sandy Pricer right before we got on here, and she's willing to share it, hopefully, with all of you if you guys want this. But focus on the things you can control. That's the first step. So if you get diagnosed with leukemia, think about what kind of doctors do you want to find? What kind of hospitals do you want to go to? How can you get your affairs in order if you do die? Because we're all going to die sometime, right? So think about the things you can control, because the worrying about stuff that's outside of your control doesn't do you any good. So that's the first step. The second is to remember what your goal is, whatever it is. It doesn't even matter if it's to get to the top of a mountain, right? Which that was my goal when I was climbing, obviously, or whether it's to retire early or, become a millionaire or save the world, whatever your goal is, just stay focused on that, because it's a lot easier to keep moving forward and to stay positive if you know you're making progress towards your goal. And then the next part of that is to celebrate the small wins, because the thing is, when you are moving forward toward these giant goals, right? If you don't focus on the little progress you're making, like, and I did, when I would make it to camp at night and I would sit down and I would have a cup of coffee and I would sit on a rock or something, and I'd look at the scenery around me and I'd look, down at the valley or up at the stars at night. I would think, I made it this far. This is an amazing experience. I would try to embrace the stuff that I was going through. And it's the same thing with, anything that you're working towards in life. If you celebrate the little things that you've done, that have happened, that have worked out well for you, then you're going to feel the progress you're making. The next thing is to just visualize the goal. Think about what your final goal is, whatever it is that you want, and feel what it will feel like when you get there. How will you feel when you get to the top of the mountain? How are you going to feel when you get to that beach vacation, whatever it is that you're wanting, right? Whatever it is, maybe it's to run a marathon. How are you going to feel when you cross that finish line? But that's important. You have to feel it, embrace it. And then you need to break that big goal into small goals. If your goal is to run a marathon, don't just like walk out your front door and try to run a marathon. Think like, maybe I'm going to run a 5K today, or I'm going to run 1 mile. I'm going to get to where I can run 1 mile, or whatever it is, just break it into small pieces and kind of fit on those. And then the next one is a mental component. And that's, to use affirmations. I don't know if you guys know what affirmations are. I'm sure everyone does. When I first came up with my affirmation, right, today's a good day, I never have bad days, those are my affirmations that I repeat still every day, because that's the trick, right? You got to keep doing it, right? Keep moving forward. But when I first came up with those, I didn't know what affirmations were. Because I'm really old, we didn't have YouTube back then. So no one ever heard of affirmations, right? We were just like, I was just doing it. But now you can go online and you can Google affirmation ideas and get hundreds of affirmation ideas. And it could be something like, I'm on the way to a healthy body, or I'm a powerful person, or I'm a positive person. It doesn't matter, but whatever it is, you just got to repeat it and absorb it into yourself, because that's the trick to staying positive. And that's, really at the root of it, the secret to mental toughness is to be positive. Because you're going to have hard things happen. But if you can see the future and you can say, hey, I'm making progress towards my goals, I'm breaking those goals, and I'm feeling the future, and I'm focusing on the things I can control. There's this quote that I really love by an author called Hal Elrod, and he wrote this book, Miracle Morning. I don't know if anyone's seen that or read it, but it's a great book. So in Miracle Morning, he breaks down like a plan to like change your whole life. But there's this quote that I love, and you don't even need to read the book to really appreciate that. And that is, the moment that you accept complete responsibility for everything in your life is the moment you can change anything in your life. Right? It's, if you think about that at the root, that's so powerful. And then the last of my eight supercharge your motivation tips is to just surround yourself with positive people. Surround yourself with people that are going to support you in whatever you're working on. If your boyfriend or your brother or your sister or your mom or your dad, if this person is constantly negative, it's going to make it so much harder for you to stay positive. And the sheer fact that you're coming to a group like this is proof that you're already doing it. You're already surrounding yourself with people that want to support you. You're listening to people talk about things that are helpful to you, right? So I would say, and like I said, there's a little PDF I made with all this stuff fleshed out a little bit more. But I think if you can keep these 3 points in mind, well, in fairness, it's really more like 10 because there's 8 in the third one. But if you can keep these 10 points in mind, I think you'll find that no matter what life throws at you, you're going to turn out okay. So, and I have proof of it, right? I had leukemia, I went bankrupt, and I was able to quit working at 37, right? Bankrupt at 30, quit working at 37. I mean, I live a pretty extraordinary life. I've got to do some amazing things. This picture of me in Australia with my Spam shirt on. There's a picture of my dad and I when we went to Egypt to see the pyramids. I'm not in the picture because I took it. Picture of me at the top of Kilimanjaro in the snow. I went to China in October of 2019. In retrospect, that might not have been the smartest choice. We didn't know at the time. I came back sick, so you guys can probably blame me for coronavirus. I think I brought it to America. I hope not. And I learned to scuba dive and went diving in the Great Barrier Reef. So I've got to do like all this amazing stuff. And like I said earlier, if you guys want to just chat about like fun stuff or interesting things, because I have some crazy stories I could tell you, happy to do that. If you want to find out more about Last Life Ever, we have a podcast. And the thing about Last Life Ever, it comes out of my getting sick. And it comes out of it's a function of, I think, deciding to recognize that someday may never come. You know, when you're young, it's easy to think, oh, I'll do this later. I'm going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro when I'm 50, or I'm going to learn to scuba dive later. I'm going to help raise a family later. It doesn't really matter what it is, right? But Last Life Ever is all about recognizing that life is short and we only have this one chance, right? It's our last chance to live here on earth, and we have to do the things that are important, and we have to live the best version of our life. And so what we do is we interview people like Dave McIntyre, who survived 62 days in the wild completely by himself on a reality television show, or Frank McKinney, who dedicates his life to making money to build homeless. Really, he builds whole communities and gives houses to homeless people in Haiti. And he told me when I talked to him that he models his life after Robin Hood, right? He said, you don't need a model, you got to have a role model in life. His idea is your role model it doesn't even have to be a real person. He said, I wanted to take from the rich and give to the poor, but he didn't want to actually steal. So what he did is he started building these gigantic $1 million houses in South Florida. He built them from scratch, and then he would sell them for like $20 million, right? And then he would take the profit from that and he would use it to build houses in Haiti. And so we just try to interview people doing interesting things like that, and understanding that there's this positivity, and there's that we can all live really big dreams no matter what they are. And like, I could talk about that forever, but like the truth is, whatever it is that you want to do, that's probably what your purpose is. That's probably what you should be working on. If you want to learn more about me, there's another picture of me at Kilimanjaro and me fishing in Aruba. But if you want to learn more about me, you can check out my website, or like the Facebook group, like I said, or my YouTube channel, or my Instagram. But that's about it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share here. And we're just going to, we can just talk if there's anybody that has any questions. Otherwise, I'll just keep jabbering because I'm pretty good at that too. So does anyone have any questions or any thoughts or anything? Got nothing. What about you, Joe and Sandy? Do you have anything that you want to ask or talk about you think is important?
You always had good days since you were 17, but what's one of your biggest regrets that you didn't pull the trigger on a deal, or something that you've gone through over the last 10 years that you just wish that you had chose a different path? Maybe
probably that time I went to work for you. No, no, I'm just kidding. No, the thing that I always frame, this is something I frame a lot of my decision making on, is when I went to Europe in 1999, was backpacking around Europe, and I did go to Rome and all that, but I also went to southern Spain because I wanted to go to Morocco, because I thought it would be really cool to go to Morocco and have a ferry from southern Spain to Ceuta in North Africa. And so I was in Algeciras. I was at the ferry port, and it was like $30 to get the ferry ticket. And I was like, maybe tomorrow. And then the next day I was like, maybe tomorrow. And then the next day I was like, maybe tomorrow. And then I was like, nope, I got to go to Rome now. And I left, and I never went to Morocco. And I call that like my Morocco moment. Like, this is the moment where I'm like, wait a minute, like, why didn't you go? I was a little nervous, right? I'd never been outside of the US before this trip. I was like, man, in Morocco is like North Africa. It's like a completely different world. They speak Arabic and French. No one speaks English. And I just didn't dare do it. And so now whenever I'm, and also I didn't really want to spend the money. I know $30 doesn't sound like that much money, but when you don't have a job and you're backpacking around Europe, that's actually a lot of money, especially, 20 years ago. But now whenever I'm making a decision about whether I want to do something, I think to myself, don't let this be Morocco, because you're going to regret it for a couple of decades. And I still haven't been to Morocco. And in fact, I need to go to Morocco. Like, I don't even know why I haven't done that. I got to do that right away. Like today, someday may never come. So you got to make today the day you do that. Probably going to have to wait till they open the borders up again. But I think Morocco has got to be on the table. So.
I know a few years ago you were doing some things when you would spend something that was for pleasure or something that you benefited from that wasn't a necessity. You also paid that into a type of savings account that lets you do things.
Yeah, I wrote an article on that actually. I call it a luxury tax. It's not really a tax because it's self-imposed. But what I did is, and I still do that now, anytime I spend money on something I don't need, I put aside 20% of whatever that cost is. So if I book like I'm going to San Juan, Puerto Rico next weekend, like a week and a half from now. So that's obviously not something I need to do. It might feel like I need to do, and it's going to cost about $1,000. Because flights are really cheap right now, it turns out, and stuff. So about $1,000. So I said, okay, well, I'm going to pay for the flight, but I'm also going to take $200, 20% of $1,000. I'm going to put it in this separate account, and I'm going to invest that in something, because you have to be constantly preparing for your future. And that's why I don't have to work. Like, I mean, if the truth is, like, because I've done that over and over again for several years now, I don't really have to have a job. I mean, I still have to make money. I mean, I don't have that much money in savings, but I'm able to have a lot more flexibility because I put money away consistently for years now. And I think that's preparing for the future. You got to start doing that kind of stuff. There's this thing called the marshmallow test. Do you guys know what that is? Marshmallow test is fascinating. I think I would have failed that thing miserably as a child. So I don't know that I agree with the end result of the test, but the truth is there's something to be learned from that. The idea was these researchers took young kids, 5, 6 years old. They put them in a room with a marshmallow on a table and said, if you wait 15 minutes, you get 2 marshmallows. If you want, you can eat the marshmallow that's there. But if you wait 15 minutes without eating it, you can have 2 marshmallows instead of 1. And they followed these kids. Some kids ate the marshmallow. Some kids waited for the second marshmallow. They follow these kids 20, 30 years in the future. And the ones that were able to resist the marshmallow for 15 minutes ended up much, much more successful because they had that level of discipline, the mental toughness, if you will, to say, you know what, if I don't get everything I want right now, I'll be better off in the future. And that's a super big secret to life. One part of life is recognizing that you might not have forever, right? And that life is short. But another part of it is recognizing that even knowing that you could die, you still have to be making decisions that are going to make your future better, because the decisions you make today, they dictate your future. And if you just make really bad decisions today, you go, I really want to get on drugs because drugs are, fun or whatever, or I'm gonna, I'm just gonna like eat too many Big Macs, then later you're going to be less healthy. And you potentially are going to have addiction issues, and you're going to have all kinds of other problems. And it's the same thing with savings and investing. Even if it's a small amount, 10%, 5%, maybe you make $10 an hour at your job. Well, put $1 an hour away, $30-$40 a week. But if you do it long enough, it starts to build up and it becomes a significant savings. And then if you do lose your job because you get sick, you don't get forced into bankruptcy. It took that for me to figure out that I needed to prepare for the future, right? So that was the second lesson, right? The first lesson was, you only get one chance and life's short. And then the second one was, you also have to prepare for your future because the decisions you make matter.
Any questions from anyone else?
You guys got a talkative group here. I might just start calling on people at random and be like, what do you think? I'm not really doing that. I would never do that to you guys.
They're all like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're all turning off their cameras. They're like, I'm not here. I'm not here. Zoom. But yeah, so listen, I could tell you guys stories about, does anyone want to know about any place in the world? I've been a lot of places. We can talk about that. Egypt's amazing. Who's gone to Egypt? Anyone?
Not me.
No, you've never been to Egypt, or you don't want to go there?
Neither.
Neither. Why don't you want to go to Egypt?
Too hot.
Well, it is hot. I'll give you that. But you can.
Goodbye.
Yeah, but you can go in the winter too, though. Like, it sometimes snows in Cairo. Most people don't realize that. If you actually Google, like, if you get really bored, Google snow on the pyramids. It's crazy looking, actually. There's actually photo. It doesn't happen very often, right? It's like Chattanooga. It snows once in a while. It's actually less common in Cairo than it is in Chattanooga, but it's one of those things where it does actually get cold in the winter. This time of year, it's probably like 60s, 70s, Fahrenheit. So it's actually pretty comparable in climate to here. Now you get to southern Egypt, it's a little bit different, but that's like going to like, southern Florida. It's warmer than it is here, obviously. So,
Cool.
But Egypt's cool. It's a fun place to visit. There's a tremendous amount of history. One of the things that I think is really impactful in life is when you get to see something that you've heard of or seen a lot, like the first time I saw the Eiffel Tower in Paris, it was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. Because I'd seen it on TV, I'd seen it in books and whatever. And that's how it is in the pyramids. I mean, everyone's seen an image of the pyramids. I mean, it's impossible not to have. And then when you actually get to see them, it's like it's sort of shocking. They're so big. The Great Pyramid is like 430 feet tall, which most people, it's hard to like recognize that, but like, that's a 40 story building. It's not, it's not nothing, right? The tallest buildings, if people are from like local from Chattanooga, the tallest buildings here are like 10, 12 stories. So these pyramids are 4 times as tall as the tallest building downtown. And the base of the pyramids, because they, pyramid out, obviously, is like 10 to 13 acres, depending on which pyramid it is. 13 acres. It takes like an hour to walk around a pyramid. I mean, it's just hard to even wrap your head around. When you're there, it doesn't make sense. And then you think about the fact that they're 5,000 years old, and it's like, I'm not sure we could build them now. So it's really hard to understand how they built them and how they were able to organize the type of labor that they needed to build them. Now, obviously, Egyptians had different moral standards than we have now, and they used slave labor and forced servitudes and stuff like that, which I obviously were not a fan of, but it is an incredible achievement at the same time. Just to see them, it's just shocking. It's hard to even wrap your head around that. So I would say, Tim, you should go see that if that's your name. I don't know if that's you or not, but you should check it out.
All right. Have you been to Dubai?
No, but I might go this year, actually. I know a lot of people that have been there. I hear really good things about it.
Heard there's a lot of fast cars there.
Yeah, a lot of wealth in Dubai because they have a ton of oil money. So they have the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, and then a whole bunch of man-made islands in the shapes of like palm trees and weird stuff like that. But the United Arab Emirates in general, it's kind of like the United States. There's a series of emirates that are like semi-autonomous nation states that all make up UAE, each one a little bit different, tremendous amount of history in that region as well. So it'd be really cool to see that.
We got a question.
Okay.
Have you been to the Australia Zoo?
No, like Steve Irwin's zoo. No, I didn't go there. I meant to, but I ran out of time. So I rented a car and I drove 5,000 miles. So I have no excuse. I should have done it, right? I just drove
You
all.
should have went, like,
You ran out of gas.
yeah, you
Yeah.
ran out of gas.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but there's, you only have so much time. I mean, Australia is fantastic. Went to see like Uluru, which is this giant rock in the center of the country, and I went to this place called Coober Pedy, which is where people live in mines underground. Like it's super hot. Like talking about hot, right? Like Egypt's one thing, but like the Australian outback is insane. Like if you go there in their summer, which is like now basically like winter time, like I was there in February, it was they had to close some stuff down because it was too hot. It was like 130 degrees one day when I was there. I mean, that's just crazy, right? Like you like pass out like when you step out of a house or something. Like it's just crazy hot. But it's fascinating, the kangaroos, the koalas and all that in the wild. I mean, it's just kind of cool to see that stuff. So I would say Australia is in my top few places I've ever been in my life. So I'll probably get back there. I'm actually supposed to go back in the fall, but I don't know if it'll be open or not. I mean, the way the coronavirus stuff is going, and Australia in particular is super conservative on this stuff. So right now they're not letting anyone in from anywhere. So
If you go back to Australia and if the zoo open, can you take pictures?
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, but you should just go. Like it sounds like you want to go, so you should figure out how to go. Like a trip to Australia might cost like, say $3,000. Okay, so it's a lot of money. But the Australian Zoo is in Sydney, so you fly to Sydney for $800 to $1,000 from like Atlanta, and I mean, you're gonna spend a few $100s on hotel rooms and stuff. So maybe you could do it for like $1,500. And the thing is, like, well, that's a lot. If you start putting away money, it might take you like 6 months or a year of dedicated focus, and then you can go to Australia. I mean, obviously, you might not be able to go on your own for a few years, but I don't know exactly how old you are, but find somebody that can go with you, or look at study abroad programs. Like that's another thing I regret. Joe had asked about, things I regret. Like I wish I had done more of that when I was in college. I had an opportunity to go to Australia for a whole year and I chose not to. You make choices, right? That's life. But I kind of regret that. I did do a study abroad, a summer one in Egypt. That's how I first went to Egypt. I've actually been to Egypt 4 times since then, but I regret not going to Australia and spending more time there.
Have you been to the Opera House?
I did, yeah. Actually, I probably have like photos of that I could show, but I don't want to go look for them right now. But yeah, the Opera House is also right in Sydney, right? So when you fly to Sydney, you can go to like the Opera House, the Sydney Zoo, the Blue Mountains, Bondi Beach, which is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. All of that stuff within like one day. It's all right on top of each other. Now, if you want to go to the outback, obviously that's the Australian continent is about the size of the US. So it's huge. And there's like 1/10 as many people. So, way huge, empty, open spaces once you get away from the coast. But Sydney's is a big city. It's like New York City almost size. And then you've got other cities of that are smaller, but that are pretty big all around the coast. But the center of the country is just big, empty desert. It's really crazy, actually. Kind of try to find a photo of that because that's kind of crazy looking. Let's see if I can find my Google Photos. I don't know what you guys are looking at now. Hopefully it's something crazy. I'm not sharing my screen, so it can't be too crazy. Just pictures of me apparently, or just my face maybe or something. Yeah, Australia is like, it's just really, really cool. I went there in 2000. Hey, Joe, do you know when that was? Is that 2013? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think it was 2013 because that was your dad's commitment. If you survived to be that spring, he paid you that trip in 2013, I believe.
Yeah, well, he was
5 years
supposed
later.
to actually have taken me before that, but you know, that's a different issue entirely. But yeah, I think it was 2013. That sounds right to me. Here we go. Here's the Australia photos. All right, so let me do this. I'll go ahead and share my screen again if I can figure out. There we go. So, all right, so there's the Sydney. There's my dad at the Sydney Opera House. I think you guys are looking at that, right? That's what we're on, Sydney Opera House. It was really cloudy the day we were at the Sydney Opera House. It's all downtown Sydney kind of stuff. I actually thought this was fun, but it's kind of a terrible sideways picture of me touching the Sydney Opera House. I know I didn't really prepare a slideshow for you, so I apologize for that. But this is kind of a cool view, like to see the Opera House from the water. That's, you know, they have little ferries there that are, you can just go out on the water and see that. But let's see if I can find Australia is so cool. Like you're right to ask about Australia because it's one of the coolest places I've probably ever been in my life. Like you need stuff like, you know, pet koalas and stuff like that. Like you can't really do that anywhere else in the world. Some diving on the Great Barrier Reef there. Yeah, so this is what I was saying about it just being like this gigantic, open, empty desert. That's what most of Australia looks like. It's very exciting. So I don't know if you want to spend time like in that part of Australia necessarily, but it's this giant open desert. But it is pretty cool. It's pretty interesting. I would say the takeaway here is though, if you want to go to Australia, just start planning it and figure out how to get there. It's like that with anything in life. Like if you set a goal for yourself, and then I always say there's really like this, the secret to living like your dreams is to first take your dream and write it down. Because if you write it down, it becomes a goal. If you just think I want to go to Australia, it's not a goal. So write down, I'm going to go to Australia. And then the next step is to break that down into subparts, right? Like what has to happen if I want to go to Australia? Well, I'm going to need to get a passport. I'm going to need to save up some money. I might need to get my parents' permission, whatever it is, right? I might need to find an adult to go with me, or I might have to wait till I'm 19 or whatever it is. You figure out the steps, right? And then you just start taking action on those steps. It's like that for any goal. If you want to, if you want to buy a new car, you figure out how much money it costs. You write down, I want this kind of car. You figure out how much money it costs, figure out how much you have to save each month to get that money saved up. And you just then figure out how you're going to make that money. And then you just go make the money. And I think any goal that you set for yourself is attainable as long as you believe you can do it and you break it down into steps and follow those steps.
Nice.
Yeah, it works really well. I've been very fortunate in life and I've had a lot of cool experiences, and it's all been that same process over and over again. Write down what I want to do. Like right now, one of my big goals is I want to go to 50 countries before I turn 50 and 7 continents. So I just was like, okay, I need to go to 50 countries. Well, I'm 42. So I've already been to 39 countries. So I need to go to 12 more countries, whatever, right? 11 countries. And so I need to divide up how many do I need to go each year? And then how many do I have to go each quarter? I break the year into 4 quarters, and then I just try to do that and making good progress on that.
What else states have you been to?
All of them.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was part of my goal. So my goal was actually, I called it the 50-50-57 goal, 50 states, 50 countries before I turned 50, and then 7 continents. So I've been to 6 continents. The only one left is Antarctica. I actually just last month booked a cruise to Antarctica. So I'm supposed to go to Antarctica next January. So like a year from now or 10 months from now. That should be really cool. Cold, I should say. Cool and cold, I guess. And then my goal is to actually, I've sort of ramped up that goal now that I'm getting so close, to try to go to 11 countries between now and when I go to Antarctica, so that when I land in Antarctica, I will have gotten to all 50 countries and 7 continents and get done, 7 years earlier or whatever. So, but yeah, the States are really amazing. Like, I think, are you raising your hand? Is that what's going on? Or are you just stretching? You're stretching. Okay, cool. Yeah, no worries. But the States, like, the one I like the best of all the states is probably Alaska. Like, I think that's the most underrated state. Everyone's like, oh, I don't want to go there, it's too cold or whatever. But the wildlife up there is amazing, and the mountain scenery is just unbelievable. People are super nice. And there's so much open land and there's so much to see. It's really, really a fantastic place. Anyone have a favorite place they've traveled? Like, I'm interested to hear what you got. Okay, what do you got?
Memphis.
What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Memphis, he said.
Memphis. Oh yeah, I love Memphis. It's a cool place. I've been meaning to go back, and it's not even that far, right? I mean, yeah, right now everything's shut down over there, I think, so it's not very exciting, but Memphis is a fun town to hang out in. There's a lot of really interesting culture there. You've got things like the Elvis stuff, and like, you've got all kinds of music history and blues and stuff like that. So it's really, really great.
Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii is great too. I actually have spent very little time in Hawaii. I had a layover there for 12 hours on my way back from Australia. So I rented a car in Honolulu and drove around Oahu, but that's the only place I ever went in Hawaii. I'm supposed to go there in September, but I don't know if that's going to be open or not either. That one, I'm training for a half marathon that's in Kauai. So I'm hoping to run a half marathon in Kauai, but we'll see if it happens or not. Right now it's canceled, but I think they'll restate it by then. I hope anyway. I'd like the world to open back up. This not being able to travel has been tough for me. So.
All right, maybe one last question if someone has it, or running slim on time at the end of the hour here.
Blake, I saw your hand up earlier. Did you have a question really fast?
Do you have any money from when you went to Rome, like the Vatican money?
So in the Vatican, they use euros now, like European money. And when I was there the first time, they were using the Italian lira, which they no longer use. But yeah, I have some euros, not a lot, but it's just euros. I mean, they're not very exciting. I wish I had some of the old Italian lira, because those are pretty cool, actually. But no, I don't have any, so.
All right. Well, it's 7:58 on my watch, so I think that's pretty close to 8 o'clock.
Close enough for me.
Obviously, thank you everybody for joining, and hopefully you had enjoyed Jeff tonight and kind of got some insights of travel in the world and having a positive attitude throughout life and setting goals as you go through it. So I think there's at least one person that sent their email in. If there's anyone else that would like to have the list of 8 that Jeff was referencing, we will be sure to get that out to you guys as well.
Next week, we're doing public speaking with a former news anchor. She will be teaching you tips and tricks and how to talk in front of people. So come back and see us next week, same time, same link, same day of the week. And thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us tonight. I think it was very interesting, and I greatly appreciate your time.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. I might have to come back for that public speaking. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.